We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Share it with your psychiatrist, your priest, your significant other. Share it across your personal social media platforms. Welcome in. Welcome in into the house, into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend. In the comments section, or in the chat room, or in phone calls later in the show. We have a stacked show this morning. Tuesday morning, August 15th. I don't expect we're going to hear much from Florida State. We're going to be covering that a little bit here on this Tuesday morning. This is the last day for the Seminoles to withdraw from the conference, a notice of withdrawal from the conference if they want to play in a different conference in 2024. We do not expect that to happen. We'll go over that shortly. The main story that we're going to get to is Stanford. Now, we are not the first ones to break this story. Other people talked about it. We felt... Other people talked about it way before we did. We felt comfortable enough to put out a tweet last night. And we're going to do a show based on what Stanford is doing. We got a little bit of interesting intel beyond what we believe has been published so far out there in the public. First of all, let's do a morning toast to everybody. Cloak and Dagger, get your mugs. Go to the merchandise store. There is a link in the description. Go to that. And of course, you guys know all the rules. You know all the rules, Cloak and Dagger. So we're going to get to this Stanford. It's a coordinated effort. They've got the big guns out there. We're not even the first ones to use the phrase big guns. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, they used the term big guns when they were talking about how Stanford is out there. One last attempt, one last push to somehow get into the Big Ten. Again, we were not the ones to break this, although we knew about it before we felt comfortable enough to tweet it, or that we were allowed to tweet it. We can confirm it, and I think we can push the envelope a little bit further for you all. It is a coordinated effort among the money, the power, all the IOUs at Stanford. Stanford can do a lot of things. Stanford University can do a lot of things for a lot of people. This isn't just a couple of people with some ability to influence at Stanford University going on their own to talk to a few people in the Big Ten, to talk to the donors. It's more than that. It's a coordinated effort. It's a planned, coordinated effort. We can confirm that here at Peek Around the Corner. This is not speculation. We are reporting this. Take that however you want it. The fat guy from Minnesota cannot possibly have this information. It is happening. We're going to go through a couple scenarios that other people we'll get to it. So keep your head on a swivel during the show. If anything pops, put it in the chat regarding Stanford, regarding Florida State. The first story that we're going to get to, however, and I'm all fired up about it, is the playoffs, is the expanded playoffs. 2024-2025. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, did an article this morning. We're going to go through that first, and I am all fired up. Remember, on our last live show, PATC, we try to make it very clear the difference between a Power 2 and some Super League of two conferences. Look, Power 2, yes. Two conferences, SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to grow more powerful, more influential. We know this. We've been talking about this since episode number 1. It's why USC called the Big Ten. It's why Texas and Oklahoma called the SEC. We've known this. We've been out in front of this. PATC, there's nobody who's been more out in front of what has been going on in the consolation era of college football. However, there's a difference between that and eliminating access for everybody other than the two conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC. And people are promoting that. People are pushing that. People are wanting that. They think that's best for college football. They think that's what's going to happen. No, we don't believe it's going to happen. And if we have any influence at all, which we don't, we had a little bit in the USC story. But no, we don't. But we are not going to stand down on this issue. A Power 2 in regards to Super League of two conferences where they deny access for everybody else, yes, that will hurt the sport that we all love. That's why we're here on a Tuesday morning to talk about college football, everything college football. So we're going to talk about it. Then we're going to get to the Stanford story. Remember, 2024, 2025, it all has been decided, or we thought it was, where there was going to be a 12-team playoff. 6 automatic berths for the top 6 ranked conference champions and 6 at-large berths. And now we had more realignment. And suddenly the playoffs in 2024 and 2025 looks like they may be changing the format. However, even though the Big Ten, the SEC, has grown in influence, have grown in power since the last playoff negotiations, come on, man. The G5 still has a card to play. And we're going to talk about it. I want to first thank everybody for coming on in real quick here. Gary Campbell, thanks for coming on in. Struthers, KS Bearfur and Skoll, Ducky, good morning. Big Lubbock, what's up, Big Lubbock? Bruce Harris, Sooner. He usually says Boomer. Bruce Harris says Sooner. Matt Neeson, hello, Greg. Buckle up. Brace for impact. Ryan, go Irish. I got Notre Dame minus 20.5. That's already an official PATC pick as we go from Greg the Cooler to Greg the Heater. Navy's going to play both their quarterbacks. They're going to throw the ball a little bit more. Now, Notre Dame's defensive tackles. You know, Navy gashed you last year with the fullback dive. Notre Dame's defensive tackles have to come to play, and Notre Dame has to get some production from their wide receiver room to help out the great Sam Hartman. We're going to talk more about that game, Ryan, as we get closer and closer. Jeff Olson, the Evil Badgers in the house. Brandon, Swivel Time, Conundrum, Breakfast with the Godfather. Thanks for coming in, Conundrum. I appreciate it. Bill Katz is in the house. Kyle Visser, John Teal's in the house. Curtis Brown, Mr. Monkey Says, Ted Evans coming in. Thanks for everybody coming in early this morning. Max Schnuck is in the house. Ben White, go Utes. Caden's dad is in the house. Kirk Bender, Nick Kelso, Immaculate doesn't see Florida State pulling the trigger this year. Randy Taylor, Crab Cakes in football. Derek Marie, Bill G is in the house. Holy smokes, everybody's in here. Almost everybody's in here. Wow. R. Webb, Ryan Matson, Sheep in Wolf's Closing. Wife got me a PATC mug for birthday. How about that? All right. Beautiful. Nick Flynn, AP poll, kind of weird yesterday. We did an episode on that yesterday. We can talk about it. People can call in or chat about it. Not too many surprises at the top. I think the USC Trojans are rated a little too high. Texas A&M should not be in the top 25. Texas Tech Red Raiders should be number 25. South Carolina should be rated ahead of Texas A&M, for goodness sake. There's a few tweaks in there. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job, in my opinion. I want a Holy Smokes Theater t-shirt, Sean. We are working on that. We are working on a Holy Smokes Theater t-shirt. We're working on a watch party artwork. We're still working on our logo. A lot of things we're working on in the background. Okay, let's get to the article, because I know we want to talk about Stanford, and we will. Oh, we will talk about Stanford. But I am all fired up about this. After the Pac-12's implosion, college football playoff format set for another shakeup. Ross Dellinger this morning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about the great gold rush of 2026. We've talked about it in live shows and episodes, how in late 2023, 2024, early 2025, the battles were going to rage among the Power 5 conferences and the G5 conference on how the playoffs are going to work in 2026 and going forward. That the battles were going to start just raging, going on between all those conferences, the networks, everybody who has an interested party in it. And here we are, August 30th, we're going to have a meeting. And it's about the 2024, 2025 playoffs once again. The 2024 and 25 playoffs were settled for the most part. They had a few more details to work out. And now everybody has to get together again because Sankey and the Big Ten, they're now more powerful. They want to push the chips in the middle of the table. I don't blame them. G5, Mike Oresco, has come out and said, we don't want no changes. Why would we want changes? And ladies and gentlemen, I still believe that there needs to be a unanimous decision to change it. I think we are where we are with 6 teams, 6 top conference championship teams getting the top 6 seeds. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The top 6 conference champions get an automatic berth. The 4 top conference champions get 1 through 4 seed, and then the 6 at-large berths. Unless they can wheel and deal, and we're going to talk about that, I think there's a chance for G5 to play their one last card to secure their access going beyond 2025. Let's get to the article. On August 30th in Dallas, leaders of the college football playoff were scheduled to finalize the minutia of the expanded postseason format set to begin in 2024. This was all going to get done on August 30th. Items on the agenda included things like ticket distribution, team lodging, other important but tedious matters around the first round games on campus. Now, after another realignment wave shook the college sports landscape, the meeting is expected to take a different tone. The college football playoff governance structure, the revenue distribution model, and most notably, the playoff format are all up for re-examination after last week's realignment shift. Several college leaders say the Pac-12's impending dissolution is expected to reopen debate among the conference commissioners on the 12-team playoff model, a decision that took them more than 18 months to reach. The collapse of the Power 5 conference is unprecedented in the playoff era, leaving many college football playoff officials with questions of their own, such as, will the Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff even show up at the meeting? And if so, how much of an impact is his vote in the league doesn't exist in 10 months? If the league doesn't exist in 10 months. If the Pac-12 no longer exists, how is the league's college football playoff revenue divided among the other 9 FBS conferences? Or perhaps is it distributed only to the 4 power conferences? That's not going to happen. I'll get into that more. If the Pac-12 rebuilds, will it be considered a power conference and entitled to such revenues that those leagues receive, that the other Power 4 conferences get? I don't think so. But we'll get to that, and we'll get to your comments and phone calls. And finally, with or without a rebuilt Pac-12, how will the playoff format change? It's too soon to say, says Bill Hancock, the college football playoffs executive director who recently announced that he'll retire after the 2024 season. Others are more assertive. The format should be reconsidered, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said on the Paul Feinbaum show last week. In an interview with Yahoo Sports, Sankey said all 3 facets of college football playoffs should be re-examined. The weighted decision-making process, the revenue distribution model, and format. While many commissioners expect and understand that such a conversation should happen, one of them disagrees with any change to the agreed-upon 12-team format. The format, described as a 6+6 model, includes automatic access for the 6 highest ranked conference champions, 6 automatic qualifiers, and at-large spots to the next 6 highest ranked teams, 6 at-large. We'd fight this adjustment. We'd be against it, but we do understand it would have to come up, said Mike Oresco, commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, historically the most successful of the group of 5 leagues. Multiple college football playoff decision makers, university presidents, as well as commissioners spoke to Yahoo Sports in an attempt to answer some of the vexing questions produced by the latest wave of realignment. And while the most interesting potential change is around that format, it is far from the only impact of a dissolved or at least severely diminished Pac-12. In meetings recently, SEC presidents have explored and plan to continue examining the college football playoff situation. And the league's athletic directors are expected to discuss the subject during the annual meetings this week in Asheville, North Carolina. You see how important the SEC presidents, you see how important the SEC is taking this? They want to change the college football playoffs. So does the Big Ten. The push is on. And this was all going to happen for 2026. But now it's happening for 2024, 2025. As the country's most dominant football power, the SEC and its commissioner loom large in the college football playoff room. That goes for the Big Ten as well, which became the first league to reach 18 members with the addition of Oregon and Washington. With one fewer power conference and a combined 34 teams, the Big Ten and the SEC are expected now to hold even more clout in the CFP room, where the 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick control most decision-making. The Commissioner Group Management Committee reports to the Board of the Managers, an 11-person group of university presidents and chancellors representing each of the 10 conferences and Notre Dame. Most expect the SEC and the Big Ten to want a change in the revenue distribution model to reflect the league's number of member schools. For instance, the Big Ten would have 2 more schools than the SEC and the Big 12, which will have 2 more schools than the ACC. In past years, the CFP has distributed an even amount to each Power 5 league, which meant the schools and the leagues with fewer members received more of a cut than schools and leagues with more members. We at PATC, I got to be honest with you, we thought this was already dealt with. This was already changed. I swore I read this over and over again. We talked about it months ago. The distribution model has already changed. As far as we're concerned, are we wrong? Let me know in the chat room or in phone calls. I thought the revenue distribution model had already officially changed. That it wasn't going to be a set of money going to each Power 5 conference and G5 schools. It was going to be a set amount going to each of the schools, not the conferences, but the schools. I thought this is already done. I'm a little confused by this part of the Yahoo article. Anyways, a change in the weighted voting system. For certain college football playoff decisions, the group uses a weighted voting system that grants more authority to the Power 5, Notre Dame, 80%, than the Group of 5, 20%, by using assigned units. How the Pac-12 units will be distributed is in question. One CFP decision maker suggested that the Big Ten and SEC will want the majority of units, creating more of a distinction between them and the ACC, Big 12, and Notre Dame. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the power two. This is the power two. Big Ten and SEC. They're going to have more power. They're going to have more votes. They're going to have more chips on the table. How it exactly works out, I do not know. But this is what's going on. This is why, first of all, it was important for the Big 12, for Yormark, to do what he did to make sure the Big 12 institutions had a voice going forward. He got it done. The ACC trying to stay together. It looks like they're going to stay together because of grant of rights. They have a voice going forward. Notre Dame has a voice going forward. But this is why Oregon and Washington were going to keep swinging away. Not just because eventually they're going to make more money in the Big Ten than if they stayed in the Pac-12. It's because they're going to have more of a voice than ever before. Oregon, Washington, Texas and Oklahoma, USC, UCLA. We have been explaining this reality for over a year. Let's say 18 months. Let's say March 31st, 2022. This is the reality. This is what I'm comfortable in talking about, confirming it's what's happening. Yes, the Big Ten and SEC are going to become more influential with their votes, with their power, with their money than the ACC and the Big 12. But you notice Notre Dame is diminishing. Big 12, by the way, I think they're quite happy. They are in the room. Brett Yormark hit a grand slam with everything he has done as commissioner. We've been through that before. We've talked about it in detail. The ACC, many schools in there are just happy to be a part of the ACC and the others want out. It's Notre Dame's influence that is dropping, and it will continue to drop. The leverage keeps getting less and less and less for Notre Dame. And we'll talk about that in another show. We've discussed it before. A change in the 12-team format, which it is believed will require everybody in the room to agree. The Big 12 and the SEC are not standing at 6+6, said one decision maker. Both are probably going to say, let's just look to the rankings with all at-larges. So the Big 10 and the SEC are going to go, oh, let's just do all 12 at-large, which I'm totally against, by the way. I want the automatic berths. I might be in the minority, but I want the automatic berths. I want the conference championships to mean something, to make it so they get a top 4 seed in a 12-team playoff. You have to win your conference championship football game to get a top 4 seed, to get a bye. Just that alone is worth having automatic berths. Besides, I want the G5 to continue to have access, and we'll get into that at the end of the article. So, SEC and the Big Ten might be pushing all 12 being at-large berths. At the center of the format argument is the familiar discussion point, automatic qualifiers or not. Eliminating automatic qualifiers is a certain way to trigger backlash from the group of 5 commissioners, as well as congressional lawmakers, both from states without a Power 5 school and those closely connected to G5 programs. Keep in mind that the NCAA and the Power 5 commissioners have been lobbying lawmakers for congressional NIL legislation. This is one big reason I think you have to maintain access. But there are even better reasons, and I'll get to it at the end of the article. R65 and our grouping have to have access, Oresco said of the group of 5, a term in which he avoids using. You want this to be a national tournament. I like to keep it at 6 automatic qualifiers, but I understand that you have to have a discussion. It's really key to keep the automatics. The CFP is one of the ways that the sport is going to remain nationally relevant. When you have all the marquee teams concentrated in 2 conferences, even they have an interest in remaining a national sport. According to decision makers, 2 formats loom as the most likely discussion topics. 5+7. The number of teams remain at 12. But the automatic qualifiers dropped from 6 to 5. Because it looks like we're going from 10 to 9 conferences, possibly. The number of teams remain at 12, but the automatic qualifiers dropped from 6 to 5, and at-large spots increased from 6 to 7. The 5 highest-ranked conference champions get AQs, automatic qualifiers, and the next highest-ranked 7 teams receive at-large spots. This still guarantees that one group of 5 champion earns a bid into the playoff. With 9 conferences, a 6+6 model would guarantee at least 2 group of 5 champions receive a bid. Best 12. So that's the one scenario. Now the best 12. In this scenario, the top 12 teams are seeded into a playoff in a similar way that the 14 playoff now operates. There are no automatic qualifiers. Last fall, the chair of the CFP Board of Managers, Mississippi State President Mark Keenan, proposed a best 12 model, but it did not garner enough support to pass. I hope it's as simple as 5+7, said one CFP official, but it could be a fight. A fight, you say? The CFP is quite accustomed to those. Animosity and dissension has lingered in the CFP commissioner room for years now. A trio of new commissioners disagreed in a process by which a subcommittee of different CFP commissioners developed the 6+6 model. And finally, the latest realignment wave triggered by Oklahoma's Texas departure to the SEC further divided the room and led to the formation of the Alliance, a verbal agreement between the Pac-12, ACC, Big Ten that ended. The Big Ten acquired USC, UCLA. We all know how all that happened. A year later, a more significant realignment shift left the Power Conference in ruin. On August 30, the commissioners would gather in person for the first time since that event. Will it be cordial, friendly? Will they quickly and easily make the necessary adjustment to the format? Easy, asked one CFP insider. No, not for this group. Okay. So this is how I think it's going to happen, where the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be able to push on the distribution model. They're going to get what they want. More money for the total pot of $2 billion or whatever they're going to get yearly for those 11 playoff games. SEC and the Big Ten are going to be able to get what they want when it comes to distribution. But the playoff format, I would consider 5+7 to be the heavy chalk going forward. 5 conference champions, 7 at-large berths, and you have to be a conference champion to get a first-round bye. So the top-ranked 4 conference champions get a first-round bye. I think that's the heavy chalk. And what I'm hoping for is that the G5 is able to make a deal with the Power 4. Make a deal to where this is not just a 2024-25 solution, but this is a solution from 2026 and beyond. And again, I know a lot of people disagree with me. Those who are fans of the Power 4 schools. I want to say this. And I said this in the last live show. But having G5 access to the playoffs, I think, is vital for the sport. I think it's incredibly important for the sport. I think it's incredibly important for the student athletes that we have. I'm just going to be talking about football here. That is vital. But these G5 football teams, student athletes, have somewhat of a pathway, access to the college football playoffs, to the distribution money that they're going to get those universities that can help pay for their other sports. Think back about how many G5 football players, really good players, who were overlooked during their recruiting class. And they performed at a very high level at G5. And they went into the transfer portal, and now they're playing at Power 4 institutions. You could, if you're a Power 4 fan of a school that's a Power 4 school, look at your roster. You're going to have a G5 transfer, somebody that's going to contribute to your team. Some of these G5 student athletes who transfer go on to the NFL. They get more exposure. And then what about the Power 5 player, Power 4 player, who has not been able to get on the field, who's had some issues in the classroom, whatever it is, they've had some situation at home, and they transfer down to G5 institution, and then everything clicks for the young man. There's a lot of interest that we have to take in. Having a Power 2 where just two conferences eliminate access for the ACC, the Big 12, and the G5 is not the answer for a healthier sport. Having the Power 4 cutting off access to the G5 schools is not the answer for a healthier sport. Yes, Big 10, SEC are going to have more and more power. Yes, ACC and the Big 12 are going to have more power than the G5. But they all deserve some level of access to the college football playoffs. And I am not budging on that. I may eventually lose on that. But that is our position here at Peek Around the Corner. The SEC and the Big 10 are not hurt at all by having one G5 school in the playoffs. You, the fans of college football, are not hurt by watching a G5 team get blown out in the playoffs. None of you all are getting hurt by access for G5. No, nobody's getting hurt. That 12th team that should have been in the playoffs of the Power 5, oh no, you didn't get in, that number 12th ranked overall. Do better next year. But for the health of the entire sport, for the national sport of college football, access needs to remain for the playoffs for the G5 schools. Okay, I am off my soapbox on that. We're going to get to your comments shortly. Let's talk about Stanford. Okay. We have known, we put out a tweet last night. We've known it before we put out the tweet. This is from BTM and his associates. If you don't know who BTM is, go to Flag Umpire, my Twitter account, go to the pinned tweet and read the article in the Los Angeles Times. People associated with being on the money perch throughout college sports, for the good and for the bad, the big money donors have become more and more powerful in this sport, in the world of NIL. And they talk, and I can confirm to you reports. Other people reported before we did. But I can confirm with 100% that there's a coordinated effort by Stanford University to somehow, some way, have one more shot at trying to get into the Big Ten. Be it their football program or their Olympic team. So we'll get into a second. This coordinated push is separate from California. Now, California and Stanford, would they like to go in together somewhere? Are they working together? Of course they are. Are the presidents talking? Of course they are. Are the athletic directors talking? Of course they are. I'm talking about this push from Stanford University is about Stanford getting into the Big Ten. Gorb, thank you. Appreciate the super chat. I will buy a Holy Smokes t-shirt. It's going to be a picture of a theater. We're working on it. But thank you, Gorb. I appreciate your generosity. Thank you so very much. There's this push. Now, a couple weeks ago, here, Peek Around the Corner, we reported to you that it was cold between Stanford and California and the Big Ten. Nothing was going on. There was no clear vetting going on between Big Ten, Stanford, and California. And we were correct on that. There was nothing going on. This is a late hour Stanford. Let's take one more swing at this. And yes, they have the issue with Fox Sports. They're not going to pay for it. Yes, there's not an issue with the Big Ten presidents. A lot of them would be for Stanford if someone would pay the freight. The donors, the big money influencers at Stanford are working on other big money, big influencers in the Big Ten in an end round to get to the Big Ten athletic departments, to the ADs, to talk about what a Stanford University would do to propel Big Ten sports when it comes to money. One of the scenarios that is being pushed heavily, or it has been pushed heavily in the last couple of days, is the scenario where, the Big Ten has an affiliate in lacrosse, men's and women. Johns Hopkins University men's and women's lacrosse team. They play in the Big Ten lacrosse. And then there's the Notre Dame men's hockey team that plays in the Big Ten men's hockey conference. One of these scenarios that the Stanford is pushing is like, okay, so our football team can't get into the Big Ten. We're willing to take $20 million for the next 6 years. We still can't get in the Big Ten. What about our Olympic teams? What about our non-revenue sports? What about field hockey? The Big Ten, you have 9 teams. Field hockey, what about the 10th? We'll give you our field hockey team. We can play in the Big Ten. What about our men's and women's swimming and diving teams? What about our volleyball team? Go right down the list. The massive amount of Stanford's sponsored sports with the Big Ten. The Big Ten have a massive amount of different sponsored sports. Stanford is looking in to try to get in that way, to try to become some of their sponsored sports or all of them be affiliated in the Big Ten, be affiliated members. Stanford be an affiliated member in the Big Ten if there's still no interest in their football team. Stanford would get into the Big Ten network. They would be on the Big Ten network for their Olympic teams. The Big Ten network then sold, I don't know how effective that would be for the Big Ten network for Northern California. But that is something that is being pushed as we speak, or at least it was yesterday, the day before. Now, of course, Stanford is looking at all the other options at the same time. That's all being reported. But here in the late hour, because Stanford, there has to be a resolution on this pretty soon. But Stanford in the late hour is pushing all of their chips, all of their most influential people. And it's not even in the college football world, it's also in the Olympic world. And they're knocking on the Big Ten's door. The Big Ten is receiving a lot of phone calls. There is a lot of communication. How do we know this? I can't tell you. But we know this. You can take my information however you want it. What is the end result of this? We do not know. We're not reporting anything, declaring anything. I'm not even going to speculate because that's going to be pushed as I'm reporting something. But Stanford, it is not just, again, an isolated, hey, Michigan, what do you think, Michigan donor X? What can we do? What can we do to become at least affiliate member of the Big Ten? It's not just one phone call. It's a cascade, a coordinated effort by Stanford. And it's hot and it's heavy. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of power behind it. What will Fox Sports at the end of the day say about it? I don't know. Will the Big Ten presidents knock on Tony Petitti's door even harder and say, look, We got to let Stanford become a Big Ten member some way, somehow, some fashion. I don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe Stanford is a day away, 2 days away from making their final decision on what they're going to do in regards to options with the Mountain West Conference or the AAC Conference. But we can confirm to you today on August 15th, Tuesday, that Stanford is doing what they can behind the scenes, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. It is hot and it's heavy, and it's been constant for the last few days. So those other reports out there, they're accurate. We can confirm it 100%. So we'll get to your comments. We'll get to your phone calls right now. Again, we don't know what the end result is. We're going to hang on to the story. We know the activity behind the scenes. If anything should pop, if another intel drops, we will do an episode. We'll come back on a live show, or I'll break it right here on this live show whenever it happens. So keep your head on a swivel. I don't know about action figures. You need a big fat guy like a bobblehead, but the stomach wobbles around instead of the head. The stomach bobbles. Ooh, the head stays where it is, but the stomach bobbles. You might be onto something, Mr. Monkey says. Okay. No independence in college football playoffs. Stanford to the Big Ten. That's what GT is saying. Please take Big Ten. Please, Big Ten, take Stanford for the sake of the game. I had my coffee. Love Greg. Got my Coke, Diet Coke, Cloak and Dagger mug. No, the head has to be on a swivel, of course. No Bunga brings up a very good point. The head has to be on a swivel and the stomach has to bobble around. I'm not sure if that's even doable, but we'll try to figure it out. What is Cal going to do? Fold the program? No, I think Cal and Stanford are working on their options. And some of those options they're working on it together. Of course they are. California and Stanford are working on stuff together. But this is an independent, isolated, big-time, coordinated push. Stanford, Big Ten. And a lot of those talks are not including California. These are Stanford people representing Stanford University outside, but with outside of the athletic department, but with approval from the athletic department to discuss possible scenarios with Big Ten, with people representing the Big Ten. Bill Katz, aside from the Olympic sports, is there any indication the Stanford Big Guns would foot the bill like SMU? I haven't heard that. I know other people have sort of reported that as a possibility. That wasn't something that we were told. Not yet anyways. Greg, what has happened with the current act in the Big 12, Pac-12 saga? Well, the Big 12, we believe, are done for now. We believe they are done for now. Are they going to continue to poke around for possible basketball-only additions? Could be. But from what we are hearing, Big 12 is done, and the Pac-12, 4 schools, they're looking. We talked about it, Mountain West, AAC, possible independent for Stanford. Where are they going to put their Olympic sports? Greg, 100% spot on. Stanford boosters, which is fine. California Stanford administrators are in lockstep, and they very well could be, and they probably are. Okay, let's get to your Let's get to your phone calls. Talk about anything college football. Stanford, the playoffs, 763-260-1333. I talked about it on my Twitter account. UTSA versus Houston. Houston is only favored by 1.5. That's the September 2nd game. Frank Harris, the great quarterback of the Roadrunners. 7 o'clock Eastern Time at FS1, UTSA versus Houston.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say?
Well, with regards to Stanford, I'm just going to quote a line from Arrested Development, if any of you remember that show from 20 years ago. Greg, with Stanford, there's always money in the banana stand. The key thing to remember here is, I think as Moen and Mather have pointed out, it all comes down to whether or not Stanford's willing to participate in the Big Ten Academic Alliance and share research and be part of that library system. If they are, I don't think the presidents care what Fox thinks, and I think they'd even be willing to take a little bit of a dilution for that to happen. That would be a huge coup for them. So I don't think that's the issue. I don't think that's the issue at all. And if Stanford needed to come, they have $1 billion athletic, endowment. If Stanford had to come in as a 0% share for the first 4 years and, build up slightly, they would do that. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's probably, getting on board with the Big Ten and going all in. And if I think that's the case, then I don't think there's a single Big Ten president that would give a damn what the network said. They would vote for that in a heartbeat. But as far as what you were talking about previously, about consolidation and everything, it looks like the ACC is probably going to be intact, at least till, the early 2030s. And I think the one thing that people need to be mindful of, the Big Ten and the SEC would like to get more money. They would like to do this, but I think they also realize that, there are some things that the G5s, the ACC, and the Big 12 could definitely retaliate against the Big 12 and the SEC by locking them out of the NCAA tournament for basketball altogether. They have the power and they have the brands to do that. And that's not chump change. And I can guarantee you that Indiana, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and other good Big Ten basketball programs would definitely have a problem with that. So I think that there is sort of a balance of power there. People think that, I'm probably exaggerating, over dramatizing it, but I think they do realize that, and I think that there is that chip to play on the table. But we'll see how that all develops. I think right now, I just don't see an AAC Pac-12 merger. I just don't. I think when it comes down to it, Washington State and Oregon State are going to do what's best for them. They both have huge budgets, and the TV money that they would get with an AAC merger, I don't see covering travel to Florida Atlantic or Charlotte or East Carolina or Temple. I just don't see the money there. And I think that ultimately what you'll probably see is, Stanford's going to push. They'll probably end up independent in football if they don't land in the Big Ten. And I think at the end of the day, I think Cal will have to, slum it with everybody else. But that's the price they paid for not caring about football and basketball. But those are my thoughts, and I hope everyone has a great day. And thanks for all you do on the show, Greg. Take care.
Appreciate it. Great phone call, Ryan. Thank you very much. Immaculate, if you are listening, that link you send me about the playoff distribution, that is for the 2023-24 academic year. That is about this college football playoffs. It's not about the 2024-25 academic season, which is the 2024 playoff. I think Yahoo Sports didn't get that part right of the article. Maybe I'm wrong, but I swore I read where they figured because I did a whole chalkboard. I did the whole analysis. The day that, there was a day that I believe it was decided. So I did, okay, this is big news for possible expansion. What I'm talking about is during this last contract, for everybody who doesn't understand what I'm babbling about here, the last playoff contract here that's been going on forever, each conference was set aside. This is how much playoff money gets distributed among your schools in your conference. That's it, a flat fee. Every Power 5 conference got the same amount of money. It was somewhere in the high 70s. 77, 78, 79 million dollars per Power 5 conference. The G5 conferences got a smaller amount. Every G5 got the same amount of money. And it was like, I want to say the contract was $400 and some million a year, like 450, 475. And that the Power 5 conferences got 80%, G5 conferences got 20%. The Power 5 conference distributed the 80% in equal segments to each conference. And I swore they made a decision for the 2024-2025 playoffs. That goes away. It isn't certain amount of money to each conference. It's certain amount of money to each school in the Power 5. They all get the same amount of money. And then the teams that go to the playoffs, advance in the playoffs, of course, they would make more money. So therefore, that opened up the gates to possible more consolidation among the Power 5, which we just saw. I really believe that's already was settled. I could be wrong, but I believe it was already settled. And again, I guess you can say, Greg, it doesn't even matter if it was settled, because now they're all going back August 30th and everything's going to be re-examined. So it really doesn't matter. But I just wanted to point that out. John Teal, thanks for your super chat. I appreciate it. Appreciate your continued generosity to this channel. Worst case, the PAC-3. I'm guessing you're saying PAC-3 excluding Stanford. PAC-3 plus Air Force to AAC. Air Force Navy game. Could be. John Teal, thanks again for your super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've had shows on it. Thank you, Stephen. I spend more time on this one little issue than anybody else probably combined, because I thought it was going to be real important to how everything shaped up going forward. And I thought that was nailed down. I thought that issue was, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I completely lost it. It wouldn't be the first time, and it's not going to be the last time. So, no, I'm not calling out Immaculate for bad. I think that's old info. I'm not calling out Immaculate. I'm not doing that. I don't know. I'm all confused. I am all confused. We'll see. Well, we got an August 30 meeting. Hopefully everything in that meeting goes smooth and everything gets decided on. I'm hoping we go to 5+7. Please put down in the chat what you want the playoff format to be. I hope it's 5+7. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Having the 12 top ranked schools. I want the conference championship games to have as much value as possible for the student athletes, for the people who are watching it, for the networks, for the conference. They have the ability to be a conference champion, and then you have a really good shot at getting a first round bye. That's an incentive. Imagine this. Alabama's 12-0 at the end of the year. The other 15 SEC teams, let's say the second place, third place, fourth place teams are 9-3. So now you got a 12-0 Alabama versus a 9-3 Tennessee in the SEC championship game. If you're going to take the 12 top teams, does it even matter if Tennessee defeats Alabama? Are they going to jump Alabama? No, they're not going to jump Alabama. But they should have the ability to jump Alabama. The Tennessee, if they win that SEC game, should have a chance to be one of the top 4 conference champions, or at least be the 5th ranked team. Conference championships have to have some value towards the playoff system. 12 best ranked, I'm not in for that. Robert Whitby, 5 plus 7 for sure. 5 plus 7 is best for college football. So I got one person backing me. Ryan says straight 12. Ryan disagrees. Mr. Monkey's got to go to the meeting, head on a corporate swivel. Again, if you're new to the channel, if you're joining us for the first time, please subscribe to our channel. We talk about everything college football. We put out 2 episodes yesterday. One was the Big Ten preview from The Athletic. We went down through that article. So we talked about everything. And then we did an AP Top 25. Real-time reaction to the top 25 being released. We do that every single week. I know people don't think polls are important, especially the first couple weeks of the season. We at Peek Around the Corner think everything's important in college football. We overreact to everything. And if you are one of those who loves college football, who loves to overreact to everything, please subscribe to our channel. Make sure you smash the like button. It helps us so much with the algorithms at YouTube. And if you want to donate to the channel, hit that $sign. We'll post your comment as soon as possible.
Call from
Moen.
Moen is on the line. Mr. Buckeye. There is a quarterback battle going on in Columbus. Devin Brown, Kyle McCord, Ryan Day keeps going out there and says, you know what? I wish we had a decision. I wish there was somebody who's separated from the other person, but it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. What is going on? What are you thinking is going to win that battle between Brown and McCord before you go on to say what you're going to say here in this phone call?
I think it comes down to the offensive line play because Kyle McCord is not nearly as mobile as Devin Brown is. So
all right.
From what I've seen of it, Devin Brown, and what I've heard, Devin Brown is a playmaker.
Yes, sir.
He can make a play out of nothing. Kyle McCord is an excellent passer when he's on point. But he gets pressured, he's not on point. So that's what it's going to come down to. I think the O-line play. If the O-line's still shaky, they're going to put Devin Brown in there and let him do some stuff with his feet.
All righty. Devin Brown,
now,
possibly. Okay. What do you got to say, Buckeye?
12 best still gives the G5 access. It's not eliminating G5s from getting in there. Tulane would have been in a 12-team playoff last year. Cincinnati's already proved that you could get into a 4-team playoff as a G5. It does not eliminate G5 access.
Okay, but envision this, Monavision. You've got 5 G5 conference championship games. One of those championship games is going to produce a team going to the college football playoffs. That would elevate all those conference championship games. It brings in more eyeballs, more money. And again, I think it's important to have those schools stay viable when it comes to college football because it gives more access to the football players. It gives them more exposure. Eventually, some of the great ones are going to transfer to the Power 5. The football distribution money alone is going to transfer down to the other sports among those universities. I think it's just best for the game, best for the schools, best for everybody. that they have an automatic access to the college football playoffs.
That's fine. If you want to give them an automatic, though, Greg, there has to be a quantifier. You can't have the automatic berth going to an unranked team who happen to be, you can't have it going to like number 26, 9-3 G5 school.
I think you can.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it does. It works. Go ahead. I don't want to butt in on your phone call.
I just say if you're going to keep an automatic qualifier for G5, you got to make sure it's a G5 worthy to play in the playoffs. I don't think it's fair to those kids to go out there and have to play a team that's going to be so far ahead of them in talent-wise that you're just going to end up with a blowout game. Second thing I would put up, and I know you're not going to ever agree with me on that. That's my opinion. I'm an Ohio State guy, so yes. Even without the AQs, Ohio State's probably going to get in simply based on their brand. That's happened before. Several years ago, Penn State should have been in the 14 playoff, and they put in Ohio State based on the brand, and Ohio State got blown out by Clemson. So they're still going to be that brand that weighted towards the college football brand. So, but I think AQs are better. And I mean, imagine, Greg, that Minnesota has a 2-loss season and finishes number 12, and
do
the
better.
G5 team that had 4 losses, it got do better.
Do better.
Sometimes for Minnesota, that's not possible, Greg.
Well, you know what? Do better. Do better.
That's their Cinderella season. That's a Cinderella.
Yeah, well, look, we're not going to agree because I think the reason why do you know why Big Ten universities schedule with the MAC schools? Is to keep the MAC.
Well, Ohio.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Ohio. Ohio does it with all their smaller schools. They did it with Cincinnati when they were a G5. Yeah, it's something we do with all our smaller schools to fund their athletic department.
It keeps those MAC schools from going under, from the athletic departments from going under. None of those we are going to a more professional way of doing things here, but it still is college sports. And just like the NCAA basketball tournament is better when there's total access, I think for football, even though it's a different sport, I think there is room for one G5 school to automatically get into the tournament. If they get blown out, so be it. Teams get blown out all the time. TCU got blown out in the championship game. It's the way it is. But having those schools have all access, and it provides so much more exposure to the G5 schools and the conference championship games. We're going to disagree, so that's fine. Hopefully, us little guys, we win out on this issue, but we'll see what happens.
The last thing I want to bring up is Stanford and Cal to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I believe that was very hot and heavy prior to Florida State making all their noise. I think now that Florida State has left the chat, as it were, and not pulled the trigger, you're going to see the Big Ten looking more towards that Stanford-Cal deal, possibly bringing in a fourth media partner. Simply because, like you said, if you're going to make college football playoffs based on the number of teams in the league, of course the Big Ten's going to want 20. They're going to get the most college football playoff win.
Yeah.
Not participation-wise necessarily, but, I'd imagine the money that you get in 2026 or 2024, if you adjust it for 2024, is going to be enough to cover. And if you can get Stanford to agree to join the Big Ten Academic Alliance, the presidents love that.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Cal, but if you're going to 24, you got to have 6 teams in a West Coast division anyway. Might as well grab Cal. Immaculate brought this up last night, and it's a great point. You lock down California. If you tell your Big Ten teams, hey, you can't play Notre Dame anymore, Notre Dame's locked out of California, which is a big deal for Notre Dame. That's huge for Notre Dame. Yeah. So, it's not a great accretive add for Stanford and Cal in terms of football, but what it could bring, you have to look at the fact that it could bring Notre Dame to its final breaking point where they have to join the Big Ten or lose, Stanford, California entirely. And I would also add that, the Pac can still backfill with teams and remain an autonomous 5. So it's really going to behoove, whether that happens or not remains to be seen. Whether it's viably financially remains to be seen. But right now, the Pac-5 still has a seat at that, or the Pac-12, whatever it is now, still has a seat at that table. They still have a vote as of right now.
As of right now, yeah.
As of right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think they have up to 2 years to backfill. So it would behoove everybody for Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State to find a conference to play in so you could absolutely, certainly dissolve the league.
Yeah.
So I do think the Big Ten is going to take a serious run at Stanford and Cal to get to 20, and I think that the Big 12 might end up taking a look at Oregon State and Washington State on severely reduced shares to get them into the Big 12 and get 2 more schools in the Pacific time zone and maybe try and create a media package of late games to cover the cost of that. But yeah, we'll disagree, Greg. I would just say if a G5 can't make it in a 12 best, do better.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Buckeye.
See you, Greg.
Appreciate the phone call. Our web says 5 plus 7 conference champs have to mean something, and I don't trust the integrity of the committee. Totally disagree with Mr. Buckeye Moen. A G5 who isn't going to get an A4 non-cons will be very disadvantaged.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate. Can you hold on a second?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yes, our web, I agree with you. Moen Vision is completely wrong, and Immaculate probably going to agree with Moen Vision because he's a Hawkeye. Those Hawkeyes and Buckeyes, they stick together for some reason. Our web, thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate it. There's one more comment here I got to get to before we get to Mr. Buckeye. One more comment. Okay. There was a shot taken. I hope I can find it. Here, Scott Stevens. Because Motivision brought up the scenario of the Gophers. What if they have a 2-loss season and they're sitting at number 12 and they don't get to the playoffs because, Greg, of your foolishness of having a G5 school automatically get in the playoffs? Scott Stevens in the PATC chat room says, when did Minnesota last have a 2-loss season? Scott Stevens, look it up, baby. Look it up. 2019, Gophers 11-2 finished number 10 in the nation. So that's your answer. 4 short years ago, keep your head on a swivel. Golden Gophers going back to glory. Probably not this year, but some year going back to glory. Okay, Immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye, what do you got to say?
We're getting an awful lot of fake news here, Greg, because I do not agree with Mr. Moen. In fact, we debated this yesterday.
Right. Okay, I apologize. I put words in the Hawkeye's mouth. That's what a Gopher does sometimes. I apologize.
I'm about to also prove you right in something else where I was wrong.
Oh.
I went online and I found an article in 247sports.com which talks about the upcoming payout structure.
Okay.
And it talks about previous payout structure was uneven for leagues with 16 teams compared to those with 10. It says, yes, a program like Alabama is being paid less than, say, Iowa State. That will not be the case in 2024 and 2025 with the new model, according to 247 Sports.
Okay. I'm glad I haven't completely lost it. I'm glad I read it somewhere. I'm glad it's out there somewhere. I can't imagine I would have just made that up, but...
No, I didn't think so either. That's why I looked.
Okay, I appreciate it. So I don't know why Yahoo Sports put that in their article today, like it hasn't been decided. But then again, has anything truly been decided at this point? Probably not.
if it has, it could always be undecided, as we say.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, they can always change it again if they could change it the first time. But yeah, it does look like they are changing it up a little bit, which is probably a good thing because that would explain why they're now expanding like they are now. Otherwise, they're just basically paying themselves less with this expansion the way they're going right now. I do agree with Moen in terms of what we're seeing right now. Talk about Stanford and the PAC pulling in schools. I think it's a big threat. It's we're going to do this if you don't bring us in. If you don't take Oregon State and Washington State, if you don't take Stanford and California, this is what we're going to do, and we're in the process of doing it right now. So make up your mind quick because we don't have time.
You're talking about
is coming quick.
You're talking about the process of Stanford rebuilding the Pac-12.
Correct.
Yeah, even if they do that, though, I am not convinced at all that that would be a Power Five, an autonomy conference. I don't think it would happen. But
I don't know the process of removing that because that's an official status given by the NCAA. So I would say the NCAA would have to vote that away. I don't know the bylaws in terms of like if you lose so many of the originals and you replace with so many more, do you lose it? I got no idea. I wouldn't want to state on that, but I would tend to, my natural inclination would be it was voted in by the NCAA, so it would have to be voted again in order to remove it. The only way to know that you're going to remove it is to have the PAC disappear. So how much is that worth to networks that may want to see a future emboldened and more powerful autonomy structure, whatever they might want it to vote on? How much do they want it to be diluted even further with some smaller schools coming up that may have different agendas, that may not have the ability to do as much, so they might stymie the vote, so to speak. I don't know, but so far we've definitely seen consolidation happening. So
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Let's say Immaculate is the president of the University of Iowa, and Tony Petitti comes to you and says, "Look, Fox Sports Network, it just isn't happening. We're not bringing in a 19th and 20th fully invested member of the Big Ten. We're not bringing in a 19th and 20th football schools from California and Stanford. No one's going to pay the freight of it. No, it's not happening. The other presidents, some presidents want it to happen. There's a few that don't, scheduling, blah, 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 blah. But what if President, University of Iowa President Immaculate, what if we can bring in Stanford, some of their Olympic sponsored teams? What if we can bring them into the Big Ten as affiliate members of the Big Ten, like we do with Notre Dame's men's hockey team, like we do with lacrosse, men's and women's lacrosse? What if we bring in a Stanford's women's field hockey team? What if we bring in a Stanford's women's volleyball team? What if we bring in men's and women's swimming and diving teams? What if we bring in some of these sponsored teams? Big Ten Network, Stanford, Big Ten Network now gets probably more buys, maybe not that much in Northern California. Would the University of Iowa feel comfortable in having a Stanford's field hockey team, soccer team, swimming and diving team in the Big Ten Conference?
Well, since you're saying I'm coming from the presidential position and not just an AD position, I would say that would require a balancing in order. If we're basically going to cover their cost of coming in, 100%, they have to come and join our research collective. They have to leave the other one. At that point in time, the gain is on the Big Ten side. We'll cover their payout. But what I'd also say to get creative is, well, they didn't mind SMU joining them in the ACC possibly and giving up certain number of years of payment. How much are they willing to give up on while we work to make this feasible in order to pay them, just so that they know they're in, and in certain years in the future they're gonna get, the big payday. Do they have their own donors who would cover them just like SMU does? That will cover them for 2 to 3 years, whatever it requires for us to push consolidation forward to have this money ready. How much do they want it? How much are they willing to give? If the answer is yes to this stuff, then yeah, I'd pull the trigger.
Okay.
I'd cover them for Stanford.
Great comment. Okay. So there's a leverage here, back and forth. I don't know if it's gotten to that point. I don't know. We don't have that information. We just know that Stanford has a coordinated effort going on. So we don't know. We're going to keep poking around, but has it gotten to that stage? I don't know.
Lucky Lisa Rice are involved.
What was that?
I'd say it's pretty. They're pretty far along and pretty big into this. If Oliver Luck and Condoleezza Rice are getting involved.
I don't know if Oliver Luck's involved though.
Well, he's involved.
Well,
I just don't know whom.
Yeah,
I mean directly or if it's for the.
I think Oliver and Luck's involved in representing the 4 PAC schools.
Right, but who's paying his?
Yeah, I'm talking about what I'm talking about, the story of Stanford pushing Stanford into the Big Ten. This coordinated effort is isolated away from Oliver Luck. This is something different.
Sure, but what I guess I'm suggesting is if Stanford is covering the bill for paying Oliver Luck, then while he might be working for the conference, he's really working for Stanford.
Okay. All right.
But that's getting into the weeds. I get it. I'm just saying this is pretty serious stuff because their sports are very important. They are major contributors to Olympic teams. This is, this comes to how important do you think the Olympic teams are in representing the United States? I mean, this is a pretty big deal to folks. So, yeah, but that's what I would do. That's pretty much all I got on that. I can pop off here and let the next person jump on. I just wanted to review that article and then, just 2 cents on the whole Stanford thing. So
beautiful.
Appreciate it again, buddy. Talk to you again later.
Thank you, Immaculate Mr. Hot Guy. I see a lot of people taking shots at my Minnesota Golden Gophers in the chat. And that brings up the point of what keeps bringing fans back to watching their team year after year after year after year, when historically they don't have a shot. Because most of us fans fall in the same boat when it comes to that. It's hope. Hope, dreams, hope. That's what drives us. Plus, we love the sport. We love to watch our team. I love to watch the Gophers, even if they're sitting there at 4-5. But it's hope. Hope drives us. Hope. No matter how small it is. And that's why I go back to the 5+7. The dreams, the hope that you could get to the college football playoffs. 7 at-large berths, 7 of them. 7 of them. They're probably all going to the Power 4 conferences. And then one of them goes to a G5. And so now all those G5 schools have hope. As small as it is, they have hope. There can be the one G5 school that represents the playoffs. And no, there's no, at least one automatically is going to make it to the college football playoffs. And then you have your David and Goliath matchup, which 90 out of 100 times, David's going to get crushed. But that's what happens in college sports. That's what happens in college sports all over the place. It's hope. Hope is what drives us back to this year after year after year. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since when? When was Notre Dame's last championship game? 88, 87, 89, somewhere? Notre Dame. But yet hope keeps bringing them back. How about Michigan? They haven't won it since 1997, but yet hope keeps bringing them back. And then us fans of the smallest, Wisconsin's never won one. Wisconsin never won a national championship. But hope keeps bringing, this is it. This is the year. This is the miracle year that we can pull it all off. I just think the 5+7 is very important. The 12, the top 12, top brand, there's the conference champions need to have an automatic berth to the playoffs. And hopefully that sticks. I was so excited about the 12-team playoff format when it happened. Three different tiers of incentives to get to the top 4 to become, you have to be a conference champion. You have to be the top 4 ranked conference champion to get a bye. Then you have 5 through 8 tier to have a first round playoff game in your campus. Then the 9 through 12 team just trying to get into the playoffs. I love how it was, or it hasn't even happened yet, but I love what they decided on. Then we had more realignment. So it's not going to be 6+6. Please go to a 5+7. That's what PATC is officially backing, the 5+7. And of course, some people disagree with us here in the chat. There it is. Kenneth Maynard, East Carolina Pirate. Agree, it's hope. If ECU won the AAC and got in the playoff, it would be huge for the university and Eastern North Carolina. Ryan says it was 1988 for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. When was the last Big Ten National Championship? The Buckeyes, 2014. Greg, do you think my Heels will have Tez Walker available when we play your Gophers? Now they're resubmitting that transfer denial. I'm gonna guess no. I'm guessing he won't be available. They've come down hard on if it's your second time transferring, basically it has to be a safety issue unto yourself, like a health issue unto yourself, like something at the university that you're at right now, something bizarre is happening to where you are unsafe, you feel unsafe. It's that second time transfer. If you haven't graduated yet, if it's your second time transferring, it's not even about the health of your grandparent or your parent. It seems like that's where they're cracking down on. I know we have the Gophers have Craig McDonald, who's been brilliant in our August camp as safety. Originally from Minnesota, went to high school at Minnehaha Academy, and the Gophers, I don't think the official word has come down, but I don't believe they think anymore that he's going to get the waiver because they're cracking down on second-time transfers. I don't think the official word has come in. Walker's a very important wide receiver piece of North Carolina. We shall see. Hopefully the kid can play. Hopefully the young man can play at North Carolina this year. Garfield Park. Does West Virginia have a chance at Happy Valley to open the season? We finally have a running quarterback again. I'm sorry, Garfield Park, but I think the chances are slim to none, and Slim just left town. I love rooting for the Mountaineers. They're the underdogs. I love the Mountaineers, but I've got Penn State winning the Big Ten championship. I've got Penn State going to the college football playoffs. I've got Penn State winning the national championship over Georgia 28-23. So this is not quite the right YouTube channel. I think everybody's going to get a big dose of Penn State here in the first NBC at night prime time. West Virginia Mountaineers versus Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State. If Drew Aller is the quarterback that I think he is, Penn State's going to be a real tough out for the Buckeyes and the Wolverines and for anybody who plays them. Garrett Green, he's got a good arm. He's got a strong arm. He can run. I think West Virginia's going to have a very difficult game. And I've said here a few times, West Virginia, do not let Penn State beat you twice. Get out of that game. Gear up for the next week. Don't let, like last year when Pittsburgh Panthers defeated West Virginia, it hung over that football program. Don't let the Penn State game hang over you, West Virginia. Get ready because you've got other big games coming up against Pittsburgh Panthers, for one, at home this year. So, no, I don't think they have much of a chance, Garfield Park. I am sorry. That's just my honest opinion. That is my honest opinion. Alan Aaron, love to see West Virginia pull off the upset, but will probably lose by 21. Uh-oh, Greg the Cooler again. No problem. No problem. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. Thanks for all coming in on this Tuesday morning, going into the afternoon here, Eastern time. We went through the playoffs, the format. There's going to be a meeting August 30th. Hopefully they come to a quick conclusion of what the playoffs format's going to be. In my opinion, I want it to be 5+7. We have the Florida State. It's August 15th. Don't think they're going to be withdrawing from the conference today. One of the aspects, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we reported at Peek Around the Corner that the Big Ten would not go into deep discussions. We were told very strongly, more than one time, by more than one source, that the Big Ten would not enter into deep conversations with Florida State until they release themselves legally from the ACC grant of rights. We don't know if SEC has the same position that the Big Ten does. I would guess the SEC does have the same position. So what does that mean for Florida State? They don't have a landing spot. They're not guaranteed a landing spot if they sent in their withdrawal notice today from the ACC. Not until they legally clear themselves from the grant of rights. And we don't know when that's going to be. We don't know how that would play out. Maybe Florida State has a good idea. But, when could they, if they could win it in the courts, when could they win in the courts? How long would it take? If they could settle with the ACC with a massive check, would the ACC even be obligated to take the check? So Florida State, we don't think they have a home. They would have a home. Florida State would have a home with the SEC or the Big Ten. Either one, if they could clear themselves from the grant of rights. But we don't think they do until that happens. And is that playing a part in Florida State's decision not to pull the trigger here in August 15th? Could that be playing a part? I don't know. I don't know if that is or not. It's a risky play. But I'm going to say a couple more things on the Florida State thing. One, I agree. I agree with Florida State. I agree with a lot of their fans saying it's too risky to stay in the conference for 13 years. I absolutely believe that. Eventually, they're going to get buried by the advantages of the SEC schools that are around them. No question about it. And the Big Ten schools nationally. That money advantage and the way it's going to be used with direct compensation to the student athletes, Florida State eventually is going to get buried. They're going to have a great team this year. They're still going to have a very good brand, but eventually they're going to get buried. So Florida State, I understand their position. Number two, Florida State did a lot of talking here in the last few months, especially here in the last month with the Board of Trustees. I get it. I'm kind of okay with it, except for you can't go back to that again next spring and next summer. You can't go back. The next time Florida State speaks about having to make a tough decision, it should just be the action being taken. You're not going to be able to press any issue forward. You've used the brinkmanship card once. You can't use it again. I get why you did it. I'm not going to take shots at Florida State and what they just did. But you can't go back to that card again next spring, next summer. Now, on December 26, 2022, when we did a live show at Peek Around the Corner, when we sort of had to stand down from the story, we were asked to, and we obliged. We did say a few things on December 26, 2022. One of the things that we did say was it was the first quarter of 2024. That was what the Florida State Money Perch was telling us. The first quarter of 2024 is when Florida State was going to challenge the grant of rights, when they were going to pull the trigger. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I think this story of Florida State leaving the ACC, I think it goes quiet for a while at least, and then we'll see what happens after the end of the football season. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going to be wrong. And I'll take the L, but I think Florida State, first quarter of 24, this story is going to boom once again. Not so much with the athletic director talking in public, not so much the Board of Trustees talking in public, but actual action taking place by Florida State. Yeah, the boy who cried wolf. Yeah. FSU, all brakes, no gas. Caden's dad, nothing from Florida State until after the football season. Then they take on the gore in the courts. We shall see. That's what we were told December 26, 2022. The personalities at the Board of Trustees, they want out. They want out. So I think they're going to pull the trigger here at some point. Doesn't look like it's going to happen today. Will Cam Rising start against Florida? I don't know, youth fans. Tell me what you think. Is Rising, Mr. Rising, going to start for Utah against Florida? We already took here officially, PATC, we officially took the Gators minus 7.5. That's the only week one game that we have officially taken. Why did we? I'm sorry, we didn't take the Gators. We took Utah minus 7.5. Why did we officially take Utah minus 7.5 against the Florida Gators week one when we don't know if Rising is playing or not? Is because it was officially announced that Graham Mertz was going to be the starting quarterback of the Florida Gators. So we quickly went to the PATC sportsbook, went to the window, hit the button, spit out the ticket. Utah Utes minus 7.5 over Florida. We've got Utah. No matter if that line changes now, and it should pop up to minus 8. If Cameron Rising, if he gets announced as the starter, that line should pop up to minus 8, minus 8.5. But we've got it at minus 7. We had to jump on it. So let us know if anybody knows if Rising's actually going to play in that game. Sean, got to get back to work. Greg, love your show. Have a good day. Have a good day to everybody. I think we'll go ahead and lock it up for today. We appreciate everybody for coming on in. On a Tuesday morning, Tuesday breakfast, PATC, Stanford was the main story of today. We also talked about the potential happenings in the playoff format with a meeting going on August 30th among the commissioners, among Notre Dame, among the playoff managers. But Stanford, we can confirm here at Peek Around the Corner, Stanford is making a coordinated big push to see if they can enter into the Big Ten in any manner, shape, or fashion. And different scenarios are being talked about. Can they actually get it done, or is Stanford going to settle in with one of their other options? Stanford as an independent football program, where would they put their Olympic sports teams? Stanford into the AAC, Stanford and the other PAC schools, the 4 remaining schools, do they poach? Can they successfully poach from the AAC or from the Mountain West? A lot of different options. None of them great for Stanford. None of them great for California. Are they going to stick with Oregon State, Washington State? Is Stanford going to stick with California? Because in our story that we talked about on Twitter last night, it's been out there. We were not the ones to break it, but we can confirm it. Stanford has a coordinated push going on with the Big Ten, using their money, using their influencers, using their big money donors, their BMDs. It's a coordinated effort. Can Stanford at least get their Olympic sports, some of them, some affiliation to the Big Ten? Can they get it done? We shall wait. We shall see. But keep your head on a swivel, because here at Peek Around the Corner, we're going to be keeping our eye on this story and all the other stories in college football as we head towards, finally, the start of the 2023 college football season. I am all fired up, and I hope you are as well. Again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please smash that like button before you leave the chat room. I appreciate all your phone calls, your comments, your donations. All of your donations. I truly, truly appreciate your support to this channel. It's going to be a fun season. College football around the clock. We're going to be on all the time here at Peek Around the Corner. So buckle up, brace for impact. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.